You choose partnership daily, not just at the wedding day. You understand that marriage is a covenant and not an event. There are a lot of people that think that they're marriage minded, but they're more wedding minded. I know that because we see today on social media some of the most elaborate proposals and weddings that you've ever seen, but no one is given much attention to the day after. Welcome back to the Dr. Jill White Show. Today's episode is for every brother thinking about or talking about walking down the aisle and wondering, am I ready? So let's break down what it really means to stand at the altar as a whole man and ask the question, am I ready to take this woman's hand in marriage? So I've got 10 readiness signs or things to look at and consider to help you determine if you're actually ready to take that big step. But first, let's just take a look at some basic facts. Now, according to national data, only about 36% of Black men are married today. That's right, 36%. And when you think about Black adults overall, only about 31% say that they're married right now. And even when you take under consideration issues of those who have never been married, we see a reality that almost half of all Black adults have never been married up to this point. And when you think about Black adults overall, for men, for example, 55 years or older, say that only 33% of them have never been married compared to just 12% of white adults. And so there are a lot of things that can cause someone to pause to get married. This is why I got these 10 things I want you to take under consideration. But really being honest with yourself, the divorce rate is relatively high in the Black community. We're talking right now about 39%, which is probably the highest among any other groups. So when brothers are fearing marriage, it's real and it's a reality. It really deals with concerns around heartbreak, fear, and loss. So this is why I'm doing this podcast. And this is why I want to have a conversation of this self-check, the 10 things I want you to take under consideration. So let's get into it. So number one, the first sign for you to consider if you're really ready to get married is number one, that you understand your family's patterns and you're not going to repeat them. So that means thinking about some of your own childhood traumas or some of the dysfunctions that you may have seen in your own household and really kind of examining. There's some things you don't want to bring into the marriage. So understanding those patterns is critical. Number two, and really think about this, that you can regulate your emotions without withdrawal, explosions, or a shutdown. Communication is a cornerstone in relationships. And from the time you were dating to the time you were engaged to this big step that you're talking about doing, you have to really examine, how do you handle conflict? Do you withdraw? Do you shut down? These are some things I need you to begin to work on. If this is still a struggle because these are the patterns that you use in previous relationships, then slow the tape down, examine it, and work through it. Number three, communicate clearly and respectfully, even when you are frustrated, right? So you don't avoid the hard conversations, you don't manipulate or shut down, but you can say how you feel and listen with how the other person is feeling. Communicating is very critical for you, and knowing the art of listening, getting understanding, knowing how to communicate your understanding of your partner's perspective before you agree or disagree is critical. And it's something that you might want to work on or you're making great progress toward. Before you learn to take stands and take strong positions, you actually begin to realize that it's better to reach consensus, to have understanding than to win. Number four, you understand partnership, not patriarchy. One of the challenges that I've seen when you look at those stats is a lot of people walk into marriages, brothers. You enter these marriages and you've got these preconceived social media or television perspectives of how you expect a woman to behave. And to some degree, some of the ideas of what you think of how a man should behave. But there's really no concrete blueprint. But what we do realize is that when you enter a relationship from the standpoint of building a team or a partnership and sharing responsibility and rejecting the way things were in the past, then that makes a big difference. Some of us go into relationships with some social media view or some television view of what the role of a man or a role of a woman, but in truth, there really is no blueprint for the custom made relationships that you are forming. But some of us, we take these old views. I'm the man of the house. And if you have to stand and take arguments all the time of the man of the house, then ask yourself, why do you have to keep reminding people of that? So understand partnership, building a team. You know, one of the things I love that my wife every once in a while says to me, she'll just pause and she say, remember, we're team white, we're team white. And that becomes a reminder sometime if I began to inadvertently in a disagreement or if I'm dealing with a frustrating situation and I began to drift from that. So team building in a relationship is critical. Number five, you can understand the boundaries with family, friends, and ex relationships. Now, I'm going to talk about this later on, but you have to understand that your family is your family. You must learn to protect it. And here's a reality: your friends and the people in your circle, they will respect and appreciate your relationship as much as you do. So if your appreciation and respect for that relationship goes down and you're demonstrating that behavior in your circles, then the people will follow your lead. Number six, you can manage conflicts without threatening to leave. You know, one of the things we talk about a lot of times in uncomfortable situations or high conflict is this thing called fight or flight. And I've seen a lot of brothers do the flight and not the fight. And in the fight here, I mean the fighting for understanding, the fighting for reaching mutual agreement. You have emotional safety and maturity, and you have to learn to develop it and bring it forward. And so, walking away is a common tactic that we hear people do. But as a therapist, I'll argue walk away and do what? Pretend like the argument never happened. And when you return, what happens? So manage the conflict without threatening to leave and stay there to reach agreement. Again, these are some things I'm saying that I'm challenging you, brothers. If you really want to do this inventory. Number seven, you have a stable identity and purpose outside of your relationship, right? You're not looking for someone to complete you. A lot of times you hear people talk about that, you complete me. But the truth of the matter is, you are in a relationship to evolve together. So you have to bring the whole self or the expected self to that relationship. No one can complete you. And that's a burden that no one really needs to take. And besides, if you find someone or enter a relationship for someone to complete you, you are setting yourself up and the relationship up for failure. Number eight, you manage your money responsibly and with transparency. One of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of times in relationships is that you begin to behave like roommates when it comes to the money. So the transparency is not there. This is something that during the engagement phase, and if you're getting premarital counseling, something that the counselor is going to have a conversation with, right? Your credit score, her credit score, these are some things you all really in the engagement stage, you all need to begin to study and understand how you spend your money, how she spends her money, and how they manage that money. This is something that's critical because intimacy and financial issues become some of the leading contributors to the termination or the weakening of relationships. Number nine, You value the legacy more than the lifestyle. Brothers, there's a challenge that you want to get married, but you still want to live the type of life that you had. You still want to go out, you still want to party, you still want to take guy trips. I'm going to tell you, this might be difficult because some of you may argue, well, I'm still me. Well, if you're still you and you still desire to get out and do these things, well, you're not ready. And that's just honest. And I'm not saying that you're not going to do it, but when you start focusing more on legacy, when you reach the point that you care more about what I call generational stability, right? Emotional and spiritually, as well as financially, when these things began to take more of a precedence than the lifestyle, then you're making progress. But if this is still something that is guarding you or in the way, or you still to desire to do at a unhealthy level, then you may not be ready. So I'm going to tell you to slow down. You must be ready to change your lifestyle, right, brothers? Please understand that is a requirement in a relationship. And I'm going to take the point that it's non-negotiable. And yes, it's the same for her, but this is something, brothers, that I'm saying that is absolutely critical for you. And finally, number 10, you choose partnership daily, not just at the wedding day. You understand that marriage is a covenant and not an event. There are a lot of people that think that they're marriage minded, but they're more wedding minded. I know that because we see today on social media some of the most elaborate proposals and weddings that you've ever seen, but no one is given much attention to the day after. You're ready for the commitment, for the sacrifice, for the forgiveness, for the understanding. These are the things when we are really prepared mentally to enter into this important piece, then we're making the progress. And then under those 10 things, I think if you do a full analysis, you might be ready. Now, there are some things to consider for those of you who kind of may be kind of hesitant and there's still some work to do. Well, number one, do your emotional work. If you've understood nothing else of what I said, that these childhood traumas, these unresolved issues, do that work, right? You want to get married, but you know you're not ready. So you're asking me, so what do I work on? Number one, work on yourself emotional. Deal with those unresolved childhood traumas. Brothers, this is why you go to counseling. This is why you get the therapy, because this is not a burden you need to give that wife. Number two, strengthen yourself financially and build a stronger foundation. Now, I'm going to say this that a lot of brothers also use this as an excuse, right? I want to get married, but I need to make this amount of money first, right? Well, marriage is a partnership. What you're really talking about is strengthening your routine, the managing of your finances, being honest and authentic about how you're doing it, and considering what that's going to look like when you get married. Remember, you don't want to walk into a marriage as a roommate. So you have to begin to do your thoughts around that. Number three, let's just say this, elevating your communication skills, right? You're not ready. So I want you to work on improving that. And you can do that in that relationship right now. And then check in with your spouse. Check in with your girlfriend or your fiance. How are we doing in the communication? You know, it's a strange thing that a lot of people don't realize that they should ask and do check ins around communication, around intimacy. How am I doing in the understanding? How am I doing in managing our finances? It's a beautiful thing when you can raise those questions, not when an issue is before you, but as part of a general conversation. And then I'm going to tell you, upgrade your relational habits, right? Working with consistency, accountability, loyalty, time management, spending the time with your partner. This is a very interesting thing because the beingness of a husband is very similar to the beingness of a father. It's focusing on being present. Brothers, that means that if you are not comfortable with you and your wife or your girlfriend or your fiance just spending time together, that you don't need a distraction like going to a movie, you don't need a distraction like having friends over or going to a party, but you enjoy being with each other, then this is something that can strengthen the bond of a relationship. So I want you to upgrade in that regard your relational habits to get used to being with your partner. Now, some of you may have actually developed a habit of not being together unless you're doing something. This is when the money gets out of hand because now you've established a situation where y'all got to go out and do something every week. So I'm going to tell you, brothers, to slow the tape down and spend some time with one another, focusing on the beingness in that relationship. Playing games together, watching videos, doing things together without the other distractions is something that you want to start practicing doing now. So these 5 things that I just given you, for those of you who want to get married but you're not ready, these are some things I want you all to work on. And sisters, for the brother who you get the sense is contemplating doing this, then give him the encouragement. When he's doing it, reinforce it. The worst thing that you can do is see a change that's happening in someone, but you don't acknowledge it, that you don't let them know that you're seeing it, especially when it's beginning to occur on a consistent basis. This is a strength. So, brothers, I'm going to tell you, if you're ready to do it, do your self check. And guess what? Share this list with the woman that you may be interested in. So, brothers, walking to the altar is a scary thing, but it's just a moment in time. Marriage requires maturity, it requires discipline, and a heart ready to build something bigger for than just yourself. Right? So marriage isn't it's not disappearing. And I know a lot of people become pessimistic about marriage, but I'm going to tell you, it's still one of the most beautiful things there is. But marriage is waiting for you. But brothers, I'm going to say this, is waiting for a healed you, is ready and waiting for a you that have gone through those 10 steps and have walked through them. Is ready and waiting for you who have acknowledged your shortcomings and you have really began to build and do some work around them. So get ready, do the work, and when it's time, stand proudly at the altar and say that I do. This is Dr. Gary O. White, and until next time, focus on these 10 steps. And for you brothers considering, focus on the 5 steps. When you do, I too will see you at the altar.